But are you a little more optimistic now about the return?
Knock wood. No, look, optimistic means not only hopeful, but confident about the future. I'm hopeful. I'm the hopeful part of optimistic, but I can't say I'm confident. Not about the return. I think sports will return. Specifically, I think the NBA will return. But I don't know that they will be able to complete their seasons. I'm not confident about that. The NBA maybe, because the NBA seemed to get out ahead of it and take it realistically, centralized locations and quarantining, and if the tests become available enough and all that stuff, and can play through the summer months when apparently the virus does not do as well because it's warm weather. But if history is any indication, people point to the Spanish flu as a pandemic that affected obviously the world. It's a pandemic, but that includes this country. And people thought it went away in the summer, and then it came back with a vengeance. It was much deadlier, in fact, when the weather turned cold in the fall again. So I understand that testing is more widely available, that the NFL has said it does have contingency plans. They will only do this if testing is available. They presume the tests will be more accurate and quicker in terms of the results, that they can give saliva tests, blood tests, and you can get the results very quickly. I understand that's the hope, and people are forecasting that, and that would be great. Based on our federal government's response to this so far, I don't have confidence going forward that they will get it together to the extent that they believe that they will, based on the history of viruses, the way they mutate, the fact that the Spanish flu came back, the fact that that will coincide with the cold weather for football. I don't know that they will be able to complete their season, so I'm the hopeful part of optimistic. I'm optimistic about the NBA, but as it relates to Major League Baseball and the NFL, I'm still cynical.
Well, I'm confident and optimistic, and the reason is because I'm not depending on the federal government. The fact of the matter is that there's too much at stake. All hands are on deck, not just nationally, but globally. And as a result of that, you have to listen to the medical professionals, the businesses that obviously are doing everything that they can to ingratiate themselves in the proceedings to make sure that we do what we can to proliferate the available test, not to mention the fact that you were on a mission to find a vaccine. The reality is that there's just too much at stake to fail in this regard, and I think everybody knows it. And I have confidence and I'm optimistic that this will ultimately get done. I can't pay attention to the rhetoric of politicians or whatever. I'm listening to the medical professionals. And in terms of the sports leagues, the minute they said there are no fans in attendance, then obviously I'm incredibly confident that this will get done. Let's just make sure we understand what that means. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody's going to test positive for the coronavirus. That's just going to happen in all likelihood. That does not mean a sports league has to shut down because somebody tested positive for the coronavirus. The UFC via Dana White showed us that when Ronaldo Souza tested positive for the coronavirus. Obviously, he wasn't allowed to fight that night, but the other 11 fights with the UFC 249 took place. And so you're going to look at that, and people use that as a barometer to some degree to sort of gauge what can and can't be and couldn't be done, and they're going to move forward here. You have 36 plus million people that are unemployed. Let's stop acting like we get to gloss over that because there's the coronavirus pandemic going on. You don't get to do that. There's no way on earth that our society can continue to move forward under these conditions. Everybody knows that. And as a result, it's going to be all hands on deck. They're going to prepare themselves for a worst case scenario, but they are going to march on. Baseball is going to have some semblance of a season. The NBA is going to have a playoff. The National Football League has been going on business as usual, and they're going to continue to do that no matter what anybody says. That's the reality of the situation. People need to get over it, understand it, engage in the new normal, and move forward. That's what we are going to do.
I agree, Stephen A.
Mike, real quick.
Yeah.
Mike, real quick. I should have said skeptical. I said cynical. I'm not cynical about it. I'm hopeful, but I'm skeptical about their ability to complete the seasons.
That's fair, because there was no certainty in all of this, but I tend to lean towards where Stephen A. is on this, and I'll tell you why. If there's one way to sort of encapsulate the reaction that all of us have to have as we move forward, however best we can in our lives right now, it is with the answer to this question: how much risk are we willing to incur in order to seek out whatever goal it is that we wish? And when you look at professional sports, they are, comparatively speaking, in an enviable situation. So many other businesses has been devastated and have almost no opportunity to return. These businesses, while devastated, have the ability to return instantly if they're willing to incur the risk that is necessary. Now, one fighter testing positive for UFC is not the same as a football player, for example, testing positive, or a basketball player, as you see here, because all of a sudden you have contact tracing. If Giannis tests positive, does that mean that his team can't play a given game? This will require a level of flexibility that thus far we have not been willing to have, understandably so. If the medical experts tell the leagues you can have that flexibility, that you do not have to shut everything down because one player tests positive, then I believe because of the incentive, and the incentive is, Max, billions and billions of dollars, that they will come back and they will find a way to complete everything they need to do.
Well, we just saw an example, by the way, when you say how much risk are we willing to take as a society, for lack of a better word. It's interesting that the people being asked to take the risks are frontline workers, and you can obviously make a parallel, but they're not essential workers, athletes, though in our business there's no sports if they're not there. But the liability, and by the way, the owners of all these leagues reap the largest rewards, and yet, as we see is the case in big business throughout the history of business, this is the nature of business, to make money. They don't want to take liability. And so players are being asked to sign waivers. You know, hey, if I get, what are you talking about? Wait a minute. So the players should take the risk and the owners have no liability? It's just interesting the way this word risk gets thrown around. Who's taking the risk, and is that risk shared among everybody?
Oh, wow, Max Kellerman. You know what? I just want to stop the presses, and I want to make sure that I'm clear, because obviously you're saying that it's not fair that billionaires get to expose themselves to less risk than the regular Joe in society. Welcome to America. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.